Hello everyone. Today I Harjit Singh Broad is going to represent a reflection video on my project that is vercall mobile application. So we have four members in team. So our team is team 1. So here are my team members. The first is Shubham Bansiwala. He's a solution architect. Second is Rajvinder Kaur. She is backend developer. Next is Rimpi. She's integration developer. And the last is me, Harjeet Singh, that is database administrator. Now we will discuss the presentation agenda, that we are discussing in this presentation. The first is problem statement, and the next is solution for that problem, and the next is product overview, and then we will discuss my contribution and the limitations of this project. So problem statement: when a user calls or client call to a service center, as per organizational guidelines, service provider has to authenticate that person by their personal details. So at this point of stage, the confidential information is revealed in the front of service provider, and due to this manual authentication which maximize the risk of identity breaches. So what is the solution for this? So to overcome the risk of identity theft and for providing better customer experience, we developed a solution which will secure the customer related information by offering authentication as well as authorizing the person. So this authentication and authorization is based on multi-factor authentication principle through the mobile application using backend services with third-party identity provider. So like our application will do the multi-factor authentication and make sure that the person who is doing the call is also authentic person, and the person who is at the service provider desk, he or she is also a authentic person. So what is the product overview? So vercall mobile application is basically one touch solution for connecting various service providers through a secure multi-factor authentication channel. So like this app is a multi-factor authentication channel. When we register, so more than one authentication is required in this application to make it more secure. So this app provides a secure communication between the user and the service provider through a call authentication functionality. Like when customer will call, he or she doesn't need to uh, say their identity again and again, which will breach their data. So there is no process like this. In general, this product will come as a solution of identity fraud, which is hugely prevalent in the market of data breach and target advertising. Like we all know nowadays, by service provider can easily get our data by asking some questions. So it is very much misuse of our data. So we have come to this solution with our vercall mobile application. So next is component used. So here are the list the component which we have used in our application. So first is Golang. Golang is language suggested by our client. So Go language is used for the development of backend application. Like whole application is developed on Go language only. So next is RESTful web services. So to enable secure communication between backend engine and the front end mobile application include third party. So we used RESTful web services for that. So next we have used Twilio voice API. Twilio is used for the call authentication and authorization. Like when person calls the service provider, the Twilio will authenticate and authorize the call that he or she is a valid person. So next is the Firebase. For Firebase is an identity provider, so it identify the authentication and authorize the person then on that identity. The next is Firestore. For storing user related data, we have used the Firestore database. So now we will talk about my contribution. So I configured the Firebase console with service related account credentials. Like during the registration of the customer, middleware should process the registration details as well as create a unique ID for the person for the validation purpose. So next, database should be stored in unique ID of the customer while registration associated with each customer or service provider, which will help in the authentication on the later stage. So next is implemented the service account logins using Golang in the Firebase consoles. So we development of backend method to interact with Firebase, Firestore database with service account credential to store and retrieve user details for the authentication as well as processing requests from the front end. Like we have used Firebase and Firestore to like identify the data for that person and to store the data for that person in the database. So next is I documented the functional and the technical aspects in sprint document. So we talked about the functional aspect of the application. So functional aspects component that we used in the functional in this application. First is mobile application, second is backend web engine, next is Firestore database, the next is Firebase identity providers, and we have also discussed why we have used these components and what how we have used. So all is discussed in the sprint documents, and we moreover we also have talked about the technical aspect of the application, like what are the technical components we have used in the application. The first is Golang, second is RESTful Web Services, next is Twilio Voice API, then we have used Firebase and Firestore database. So we all have discussed in this sprint document about this. So what I have learned, I have learned the Merc server functionality to Go based web application, as it was Go language was suggested by the client. So it was new for all of us to learn, and we got a good chance to learn the Go language, and it was pretty good experience. So we understand the functional flow of the complete product as well as technical implementation of the same. So we got the information about the technical components and the functional component of the what we can use and what we have in this application. So we acquired experience with development of Go modules to initialize the Firebase project, and we gained knowledge about the implementation methodologies of Firebase identity provider for the user authentication. Like we got the knowledge about the how Firebase identity provider works and how it authenticates the details of the person. Next, we gained experience in the integration of Twilio Voice API for the authentication of the caller before forwarding the call. Like Twilio verify the call is authentic or not. So we got a handful of experience on Twilio Voice API. So next is the product limitations. So first is authentication of the caller through unique extension, OTP or number, which should be packed with the outbound call. And at the receiver end, the OTP or extension would be retrieved from the call details, and then it will be authenticated through the backend. And the next is implementation of biometric authentication during the login of the user, because nowadays we can easily see every mobile phone have the biometric in them, so we can implement this. So next is enable the integration of the third party system or existing the system with the vercall mobile application. So that was all. So thank you everyone for watching my reflection video. Thank you.